My friends, the conversation around the Philadelphia Eagles right now is being shaped by something much bigger than a single signing or one coaching move. What's happening behind the scenes is about stability, pressure, and positioning the franchise to stay in the Super Bowl window. And the first major storyline starts on the defensive side of the ball with Vic Fangio. This has quietly been one of the most important situations for the organization over the last couple of weeks. Fangio actually approached the Eagles and told them he was considering stepping away from coaching. That alone sent a shock through the building, because in just 2 seasons in Philadelphia, the defense became a top 5, top 10 unit, built on discipline, structure, and development. Fangio grew up an Eagles fan in Dunmore, Pennsylvania, and coming home clearly meant something to him. But age and the grind of the NFL started to weigh on him. He's closing in on 70, and the daily demands of coordinating a defense at the highest level are real. At the same time, the Eagles took another hit when defensive backs coach Christian Parker left for the Dallas Cowboys to become their defensive coordinator. And that one hurt. Parker wasn't just another assistant. He played a major role in developing Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean into first-team All-Pros. He also helped shape Patrick Surtain into the player he is today. And when Jair Alexander became an All-Pro, he credited a lot of that growth to Christian Parker. Around the league, Parker has been viewed as an ascending star. Even inside the Eagles' locker room, players consistently mentioned him as someone who could eventually become a coordinator or even a head coach. So when Dallas offered him a defensive coordinator job, he wasn't going to pass that up while Philadelphia still had uncertainty around Fangio's future. That uncertainty forced the Eagles to protect themselves. After Fangio floated the idea of retiring, the organization did its due diligence. They reached out to former Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon, who was officially named defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. They also contacted Jim Schwartz, the same coordinator who helped turn the Eagles' defense into a dominant unit in 2017 on the way to a Super Bowl with Doug Peterson. Schwartz had just been passed over for the Cleveland Browns head coaching job, and even though he's under contract, the Eagles still gauged interest, just in case Fangio decided to walk away. But the important part of this story is what happened next. The Eagles' leadership, Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni, and others, pushed hard to keep Fangio in the building. According to reporting from E.J. Smith of PHLY, Fangio seriously entertained retiring as recently as last week, but after a lot of persuasion, that's no longer the direction. The Eagles now feel confident that Vic Fangio will return as defensive coordinator for 2026. Talking to people around Super Bowl Radio Row in San Francisco, there's growing belief that Fangio will still be running this defense next season. And that matters, because continuity is everything when you're chasing championships. Fangio's system isn't something you casually replace without losing identity. Now, while the coaching situation stabilizes, the Eagles also got massive news from a financial perspective. The NFL informed teams that the 2026 salary cap is projected to jump significantly. The projection sits between about $301 million and $305.7 million. Think about how crazy that is. Back in 2013, the salary cap was $123 million. After COVID, it dipped, but since 2022, it's exploded, from $208.2 million in 2022 to over $300 million by 2026. That's the business of football booming, and it changes how teams build rosters. For the Eagles, this is huge. Their projected 2026 cap space was around $20.5 million, middle of the pack in the league. With the cap jump, you can realistically add another $20 million to that. That puts Philadelphia in the range of $40 million plus in space. And when you're talking about Howie Roseman with that kind of flexibility, you're talking about opportunity. One big move, multiple strong moves, roster retention, or aggressive additions. This type of financial freedom keeps the Eagles competitive without tearing everything down. That leads naturally into another storyline Eagles fans have been talking about: Milton Williams. The former Eagles defensive tackle signed with New England after a dominant run with Philadelphia, including his performance against Kansas City where he constantly pressured Patrick Mahomes from the interior. A clip of him went viral when he compared Eagles fans and Patriots fans. He said New England fans are passionate, but Philly fans don't care about consequences. They're emotional, fearless, and fully invested. That's the culture he experienced here.
But the business side of football decided his future. Milton Williams is making about $27 million per year with the Patriots. The Eagles were never realistically going to match that. He bet on himself in 2024, became one of the top interior pass rushers in the league, and got paid. He even said New England showed they wanted him more, explained their plan, and convinced him they believed in what he brings. Sometimes it's not about love, it's about value, and that's what free agency really is. Finally, there's movement on offense too. The Eagles went through an exhaustive offensive coordinator search and landed on Sean Mannion, formerly the Packers quarterbacks coach and offensive assistant before that. He's worked under strong offensive minds, and around Super Bowl week there's real respect for that hire. Philadelphia cast a wide net and settled on someone they believe can help shape the offense moving forward. All of this ties together into one theme. The Eagles are protecting their Super Bowl window. They're stabilizing the defense with Fangio, managing losses like Christian Parker, preparing financially with the cap explosion, understanding why players like Milton Williams leave, and reshaping the offense with Sean Mannion. Now the real question becomes about direction, not just talent. With Fangio likely staying, the cap jumping over $300 million, and the front office holding flexibility, what kind of moves do you think the Eagles should prioritize next to keep this team in championship form, and how aggressive do you believe they should be heading into 2026? Because once you stabilize the structure of a franchise, that's when the real decisions start to matter. And for the Eagles, the next layer of this story is about how all these pieces connect, not in isolation, but as a long-term plan. Keeping Vic Fangio is not just about comfort, it's about protecting the identity of the defense. Fangio's system is built on communication, leverage, disguise, and trust. When players know exactly what the coordinator expects, they play faster. You don't hesitate, you don't guess. And that's why losing Christian Parker hurt, but keeping Fangio matters even more. Parker helped develop elite talent, but Fangio sets the framework those players operate in every single snap. If Fangio had walked away, the Eagles wouldn't just be replacing a coach, they'd be replacing philosophy. The terminology changes, the teaching methods change, the way coverages rotate changes, the way pass rush lanes are coached changes, and that costs time. Time is something contenders don't have. So when the Eagles convinced Fangio to stay, they essentially protected years of defensive investment. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, the secondary, the front structure, all of it keeps growing instead of resetting. Now layer that with the salary cap explosion. This is where Howie Roseman becomes dangerous. $40+ million in projected space isn't just a number, it's leverage. It allows the Eagles to decide instead of react. They can retain core players instead of watching them walk. They can structure contracts creatively instead of pushing dead money into the future. They can absorb risk on impact players without mortgaging multiple seasons. When the cap jumps, smart teams don't just spend, they control the market. That's why the Milton Williams situation is important even after he's gone. His departure shows how the Eagles think. They didn't panic. They didn't overpay emotionally. They understood the price point and stayed disciplined. Williams turned himself into one of the best interior pass rushers in football, and the Patriots paid him accordingly. Philadelphia respected it but didn't break structure for it. Now, with more cap space coming, that discipline gives them options at positions that actually fit the timeline of the roster. And that timeline matters. The Eagles aren't rebuilding, they're reloading. There's a massive difference. Rebuilding means stripping everything down. Reloading means adjusting around a competitive core. Fangio returning, the cap jumping, and the coaching staff stabilizing tells you the Eagles see themselves as contenders, not projects. That also ties into the Sean Mannion hire. This isn't a flashy move, but it's a calculated one. Mannion has lived in quarterback rooms. He's coached under respected offensive systems. He understands structure, timing, and progression. The Eagles didn't just want creativity, they wanted someone who understands how to develop and communicate with players week to week. Offensive coordinators don't just design plays, they manage rhythm, confidence, and problem solving during a season. Mannion fits the type of hire that focuses on sustainability, not just headlines. And that's the word that keeps coming back, sustainability. Fangio staying sustains the defense. The salary cap jump sustains roster flexibility. Letting Milton Williams walk sustains financial discipline. Hiring Mannion sustains offensive development. None of these moves scream chaos. They all scream planning. What's interesting is how much pressure is quietly building on the Eagles because of this. When you have stability, you lose excuses. If Fangio is here, the defense has no reason to regress. If the cap is over $300 million, the front office has no reason to stand still. If the offense has a new coordinator, the unit has no reason to stay predictable. Stability increases expectations, and that's where Eagles fans come into this story. Milton Williams said something that sticks. Philly fans don't care about consequences. They care about results. They care about effort. They care about identity. And that culture bleeds into the building. Players feel it. Coaches feel it. Executives feel it. When the Eagles protect their system and their financial power at the same time, they're basically telling the city, we're not stepping back. So now the conversation shifts. Not about whether the Eagles are competitive, but about how they use their leverage. Do they go all in on a major free agent? Do they focus on retention? Do they prioritize the trenches again? Do they invest heavier on defense knowing Fangio's system can maximize talent? Or do they lean into offensive evolution with Mannion guiding a new phase? Every move now compounds on the last one. Fangio staying makes defensive investment smarter. Cap growth makes aggressive moves safer. Coaching stability makes development faster. And discipline with contracts makes long-term success realistic instead of emotional. That's what makes this moment interesting for Philadelphia. They're not chasing relevance. They're managing a window. And windows don't stay open because of hype. They stay open because of structure, patience, and calculated aggression. So as this story continues to unfold, the biggest thing to watch isn't just who the Eagles add, but how they choose to use the power they've built behind the scenes. And when you really step back and look at where the Eagles are positioned, you start to understand that the next phase isn't about headlines, it's about execution. The organization already did the hard part. They protected the foundation. Vic Fangio staying keeps the defensive language intact. Players don't have to relearn concepts. They refine them. Coverage rules stay the same. Pressure packages stay familiar. Teaching becomes deeper instead of wider. That's how good defenses become great ones instead of inconsistent ones. The loss of Christian Parker still matters, though. Development doesn't stop just because the coordinator stays. Parker was hands-on with technique, footwork, eye discipline, and leverage in the secondary. Replacing that type of teacher isn't automatic. The Eagles now have to make sure the next defensive backs coach can carry the same level of detail. Fangio can design the structure, but player growth still depends on daily coaching. That's something fans should keep an eye on, because championships are often won in the meeting rooms long before they're won on Sundays. And that's where the cap growth becomes even more valuable. With the projected jump past $300 million, the Eagles aren't boxed into one philosophy. They can be aggressive without being reckless. They can fix weaknesses without sacrificing strengths. They can extend players earlier, restructure smarter, and still keep flexibility for future years. Howie Roseman has always treated the cap like a weapon, not a limitation. When the number grows, his playbook grows with it. What makes this interesting is that the Eagles now have leverage in conversations they didn't before. When players see that Philadelphia has money, stability, and Super Bowl expectations, negotiations change. It's no longer just about dollars, it's about destination. Fangio's presence, the competitive roster, and financial room make Philly attractive for veterans who still want to win. That matters in free agency, especially when you're looking for players who fit a system instead of chasing names. The Milton Williams situation still echoes here. He didn't leave